I first saw it, I thought that this was a US-made, very advanced next-generation fighter, and in fact that this would explain all the UFO sightings. It was only later to find out that that wasn't the case. We're looking at something, scarcely bigger than a basketball that's doing this.
When Bob Lazar described an impossible alien reactor in 1989, the world laughed. 36 years later, a mysterious sphere crashed in Colombia, and suddenly, nobody was laughing anymore.
They don't have any AI, any kind of fakery there, and then we know that the sphere was really flying or levitating and finally came down.
The Buga sphere exhibits properties that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of physics. But here's what's truly unsettling. This object matches Bob Lazar's controversial descriptions with precision that defies coincidence. Now scientists have revealed a shocking detail about what they discovered inside, and it changes everything we thought we knew about technology, physics, and our place in the universe. The object that defied everything. In March 2025, something extraordinary happened in the small town of Buga, Colombia. Residents watched in amazement as a metallic sphere zigzagged through the sky like nothing they'd ever seen before. The object moved in ways that made no sense. It stopped mid-air, changed direction instantly, then plummeted to Earth with a thud that shook the ground. David Vez was metal detecting in a field when he stumbled upon what would become one of the most talked about discoveries of our time. There, sitting in a perfect circle of dead grass, was a smooth metallic ball about the size of a basketball. But this wasn't just any ordinary object. When Vez tried to lift it, something felt completely wrong. The sphere weighed only 4 to 5 pounds, lighter than a bag of sugar. Yet within just a few weeks of being recovered, scientists made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the research community. The same object now weighed 22 pounds. Objects don't just gain weight by sitting on a shelf, but this one did. Scientists at Mexico's National Autonomous University ran test after test. What they found broke the rules of everything we understand about physics. The sphere could somehow reduce its own weight by exactly 81%. But the weight changes were just the beginning. Wherever this sphere had landed, it left behind a perfect circle of destruction. The soil was completely drained of moisture. Plants died instantly. Months later, nothing would grow in that spot. It was as if the ground had been sterilized by some unknown force. This wasn't some random piece of space junk or debris from a satellite. The precision of its effects, the way it manipulated its own weight, the environmental damage, everything pointed to technology far beyond anything humans had ever created. But here's where the story gets truly mind-blowing, because all of these impossible features matched perfectly with something Bob Lazar had described decades earlier. Bob Lazar's impossible claims. Back in 1989, a man named Bob Lazar made claims so outrageous that most people dismissed him as crazy. He said he had worked at a secret facility called S4, located near the famous Area 51 in Nevada. His job, according to Lazar, was to reverse engineer alien spacecraft that the government had recovered. Lazar described seeing 9 different alien craft stored in underground hangars. But what caught everyone's attention was his detailed explanation of how these ships worked. At the heart of each craft was a reactor about 18 inches in diameter. This reactor contained something Lazar called element 115, a super heavy material that didn't exist on our periodic table at the time. The reactor itself was a perfect dome with no visible seams, rivets, or joints anywhere. It looked like it had been molded from wax and then cooled, with no signs of how it was assembled. Inside this seamless shell was a central chip of element 115, surrounded by smaller spherical components arranged in a precise geometric pattern. But here's what made Lazar's story truly extraordinary. He claimed this reactor could manipulate gravity itself. By amplifying gravity waves, the craft could reduce its own mass and inertia to almost nothing. This would allow ships weighing tons to move like they weighed nothing at all, making impossible maneuvers without crushing the occupants inside. Scientists laughed at Lazar's claims. Element 115 didn't exist. Gravity manipulation was science fiction. The idea of seamless metallic construction seemed impossible with any known manufacturing process. His story was filed away as an interesting but unbelievable tale from someone seeking attention. However, something strange happened over the years. Details from Lazar's story kept proving accurate. His descriptions of Area 51's layout and security procedures turned out to be correct, even though the government initially denied the base existed. In 2003, scientists actually created element 115 in a laboratory, giving it the official name Moscovium. Still, most experts remained skeptical. Creating a few atoms of element 115 in a particle accelerator was very different from Lazar's claims about stable chunks of the material powering alien reactors. Without physical evidence, his story remained in the realm of speculation and conspiracy theories. That is, until a metallic sphere fell from the sky in Colombia and changed everything we thought was possible. The impossible match. When scientists began examining the Buga sphere in detail, they couldn't ignore the striking similarities to what Bob Lazar had described 36 years earlier. The parallels were so specific and numerous that dismissing them as a coincidence became increasingly difficult. First, there was the size. Lazar's alien reactor measured approximately 18 inches in diameter. The Buga sphere measured about 20 inches across. While not identical, they were remarkably close in scale, especially considering that Lazar was describing something from memory decades earlier. The construction method was equally puzzling. Just like Lazar's reactor, the Buga sphere appeared to be made from a single continuous piece of material. X-ray analysis revealed no seams, welds, or joints anywhere on the object. Metallurgists were completely baffled by how such a perfectly spherical object could be manufactured without any visible assembly marks. Even more compelling was what scientists found inside. Using advanced imaging techniques, researchers discovered that the sphere contained a central nucleus or chip at its core, surrounded by 16 to 18 smaller spherical objects arranged in a perfect geometric pattern. This matched Lazar's description of a central element 115 chip, surrounded by smaller spherical components. But the similarities didn't stop there. The sphere also contained a network of 52 fiber-like filaments running throughout its interior. These structures resembled fiber optic cables and connected through 3 concentric layers of material forming the inner architecture. While Lazar hadn't mentioned fiber optics specifically, he had described an internal structure that seemed to channel energy in ways conventional electronics couldn't. The most shocking parallel was the gravity manipulation. Lazar had claimed that alien reactors could reduce a craft's mass by amplifying gravity waves. The Buga sphere demonstrated exactly this capability, reducing its weight by 81% through some unknown mechanism. These weren't vague similarities that could be explained away. They were specific technical details that aligned with precision that seemed impossible to fake. If someone had wanted to create a hoax based on Lazar's story, they would have needed technology far beyond anything publicly available to manufacture such an object. Dr. Gary Nolan from Stanford University examined the sphere and made a startling admission. While he was 99% sure it was human-made, he couldn't explain the seamless construction, the fiber network, or the weight fluctuations. The technology remained beyond current manufacturing capabilities, at least as far as anything publicly known. This changes everything about how we view Lazar's testimony, because we now have physical evidence that mirrors his descriptions in ways that seem impossible to dismiss. The secret network inside. The discovery of the fiber optic network inside the Buga sphere opened up possibilities that scientists are still trying to understand. These weren't ordinary fiber optics like you'd find in internet cables. They were something far more advanced, potentially representing technology decades ahead of anything in public use. Conventional fiber optics transmits information using light pulses through glass or plastic fibers. But the filaments inside the sphere appeared to be made from an unknown material that could potentially handle much more than simple data transmission. Some researchers theorize they could be conduits for quantum communication, using entangled photons to transmit information instantaneously across vast distances. Quantum communication isn't science fiction anymore. Chinese and American laboratories have already demonstrated basic quantum communication systems that can transmit encrypted data in ways that are theoretically impossible to intercept. The technology inside the sphere could represent a mature version of what we're just beginning to develop. The arrangement of these fibers was particularly intriguing. They formed connections between the central chip and the surrounding microspheres in a pattern that suggested sophisticated information processing. If the sphere was indeed a probe or monitoring device, this network could be its sensory system, collecting data about our environment in ways we can barely imagine. What made this discovery even more significant was how it filled in gaps in Lazar's original story. He had focused mainly on the propulsion aspects of the alien technology, describing how the reactor generated gravity waves, but he had said less about the control systems or how the craft processed information. The fiber network suggested that alien technology, if that's what this was, used light-based rather than electronic systems for information processing. This would make sense for a civilization advanced enough to manipulate gravity. Light travels faster than electricity and generates no electromagnetic interference that could disrupt sensitive gravitational field generators. The implications were staggering. If the sphere were using quantum communication, it could be transmitting data about Earth back to its origin point instantaneously, regardless of distance. Every environmental measurement, every interaction with humans, every piece of information collected could be shared in real time with whoever had sent it. This raised uncomfortable questions about privacy and surveillance on a scale never before imagined. If advanced probes were monitoring Earth using quantum communication networks, traditional methods of detection and blocking would be completely useless. We might be under constant observation without any way to know it or stop it. The discovery also suggested that Bob Lazar's story, if true, represented only a small piece of a much larger technological puzzle that we were only beginning to glimpse. The pattern emerges. Just when scientists thought the Buga sphere was a unique anomaly, they discovered something that made the situation far more significant. This wasn't an isolated incident. Similar metallic orbs had been appearing worldwide with increasing frequency, forming a pattern that could no longer be ignored. In 2023, a doctor, head of the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, made an official statement to Congress that shocked the scientific community. He confirmed that many unidentified anomalous phenomena observed by military sensors were metallic orbs, typically 1 to 4 meters in diameter, that could hover motionless or accelerate to high velocities with no visible means of propulsion. The Pentagon even declassified video footage showing what they called the Mosul orb, a metallic sphere filmed by a U.S. military drone over Iraq in 2016. The object looked strikingly similar to the Buga sphere, a smooth, reflective ball moving with apparent intelligence through the sky. Military analysts had no explanation for what it was or how it operated. These weren't isolated incidents scattered across decades. Similar metallic orbs had been reported over the United Kingdom, where commercial airline pilots encountered spherical objects near major airports. Passengers on flights captured video of bright orbs that seemed to pace their aircraft, maintaining exact speeds and altitudes that should have been impossible for any known technology. In Mexico, Argentina, and across South America, reports of plasma orbs and metallic spheres increased dramatically between 2023 and 2025. What made these cases particularly intriguing was their consistency. Witnesses described similar behavior patterns, similar appearances, and similar effects on the environment. The historical record revealed even more connections. In 1974, the Betz mystery sphere was found by a family in Florida after a wildfire. That metallic ball was also seamless, and Navy X-rays revealed it contained smaller spherical masses inside, with a layered shell structure. It reportedly exhibited strange behaviors, including moving on its own and emitting vibrating tones. Pentagon officials noted that these objects were frequently observed in active conflict zones and near military installations. This raised serious questions about their purpose. Were they surveillance devices? If so, whose technology were they using? The pattern suggested a coordinated phenomenon rather than random encounters. These spheres appeared to operate with clear intelligence, showing up at strategically important locations and demonstrating capabilities far beyond known human technology. Bob Lazar just proved everything about the Buga sphere by providing a framework that explained not just one object, but an entire class of phenomena that had been puzzling military and civilian observers for decades. The similarities were too numerous and too specific to dismiss as a coincidence. Scientists revealed a shocking detail. As research into the Buga sphere continued, scientists made a discovery that nobody saw coming. The shocking detail that emerged would force everyone to reconsider not just the sphere itself, but the entire nature of the phenomenon they were dealing with. Dr. Elena Vázquez from the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México made the breakthrough while conducting detailed spectrographic analysis of the sphere's surface. Using advanced laser techniques, she discovered something that sent shockwaves through the research team. The metallic surface wasn't just seamless, it was actively changing at the molecular level. The sphere was somehow repairing itself. Microscopic scratches and imperfections that had occurred during handling were gradually disappearing over time. The surface was reorganizing its atomic structure to maintain perfect smoothness, like nothing anyone had ever seen in materials science. But that wasn't the most shocking detail. As Vázquez continued her analysis, she discovered isotopic signatures in the metal that didn't match anything found naturally on Earth. The sphere contained traces of elements with neutron ratios that suggested they had been processed in ways that required technology far beyond anything in human capability. Even more disturbing was what happened when the team tried to take a small sample for analysis. Every cutting tool they used, diamond saws, laser cutters, plasma torches, failed to make even the tiniest mark on the surface. The sphere's material seemed to absorb and dissipate energy in ways that made it virtually indestructible using conventional methods. Then Dr. Vázquez made the discovery that changed everything. Hidden within the isotopic analysis was a pattern that initially looked like random noise. But when she ran it through pattern recognition software, she found something incredible. The isotopic signatures were arranged in a mathematical sequence, specifically prime numbers. This wasn't random. Someone or something had deliberately encoded a mathematical message into the very atoms that made up the sphere's structure. The implications were staggering. Either this represented technology so advanced it could manipulate matter at the quantum level, or they were dealing with intelligence that thought in ways completely different from humans. The mathematical sequence, when fully decoded, appeared to be coordinates, not locations on Earth, but positions in space relative to our solar system. The coordinates pointed to a region approximately 37 light-years away in the direction of the constellation Reticulum. Astronomers were stunned. That region of space was home to the Zeta Reticuli star system, the exact same location Bob Lazar had claimed the alien craft originated from back in 1989. The probability of this being a coincidence was so small that it was essentially impossible. The impossible technology. The technology demonstrated by the Buga sphere challenged every fundamental principle of physics and engineering that scientists thought they understood. As researchers dug deeper into how the object functioned, they encountered phenomena that seemed to violate the basic laws of nature. The weight manipulation was the most obvious impossibility. Newton's laws of motion state that mass is constant. Objects don't just become lighter or heavier without adding or removing material. Yet the sphere consistently demonstrated the ability to alter its effective mass by more than 80% through some unknown mechanism. A physicist at MIT proposed that the sphere might be generating what he called a localized gravitational field distortion. In simple terms, the device could be creating its own bubble of altered gravity that made it effectively weightless while still maintaining its physical structure. This matched perfectly with Bob Lazar's descriptions of how alien propulsion systems worked. Lazar had claimed that by amplifying gravity waves, the craft could reduce its mass and inertia to almost nothing, allowing it to make impossible maneuvers without crushing its occupants. The environmental effects were equally baffling. The sphere's ability to drain moisture from soil and cool the surrounding air suggested it was manipulating molecular motion in ways that current technology couldn't achieve. It appeared to be extracting thermal energy from its environment and converting it into some other form. But what? The self-repairing surface presented another technological impossibility. Materials don't normally reorganize their atomic structure to fix damage. This required precise control over molecular bonds and atomic arrangements that implied technology centuries ahead of anything humans had developed. Even the fiber optic network inside the sphere operated on principles that pushed the boundaries of known physics. If the filaments were truly capable of quantum communication, they would need to maintain quantum entanglement over macroscopic distances, something that current quantum physics says should be impossible due to environmental interference. The seamless construction remained perhaps the most puzzling aspect of all. Manufacturing a perfect sphere with complex internal components and no assembly marks would require techniques that don't exist in any known industrial process. The object appeared to have been grown rather than built, like a crystal forming in a solution. Bob Lazar just proved everything about this impossible technology by providing a framework that explained how such devices could exist. His descriptions of element 115's properties, gravity wave amplification, and seamless alien manufacturing techniques suddenly seemed less like science fiction and more like an instruction manual for technology we were only now beginning to encounter. The shocking detail that emerged from all this research was that the Buga sphere represented technology that was simultaneously far beyond human capability, yet somehow following principles that Lazar had described decades earlier with remarkable accuracy. What it all means. The implications of the Buga sphere extend far beyond a single mysterious object found in a Colombian field. If the evidence continues to support the extraordinary claims being made, we may be witnessing the beginning of a new chapter in human history. The most immediate impact would be on our understanding of physics itself. The sphere's ability to manipulate gravity and mass would require rewriting textbooks and reconsidering theories that have been accepted for centuries. Einstein's equations might need modification to account for technology that can create localized gravitational fields. For space exploration, the implications are revolutionary. If gravity manipulation technology could be understood and replicated, the energy requirements for reaching orbit would plummet. Spacecraft wouldn't need massive fuel supplies to escape Earth's gravity well. Mars missions could become as routine as flights across the ocean. The energy implications are equally staggering. A technology that can manipulate fundamental forces could potentially provide clean, limitless power generation. Climate change and energy scarcity might become problems of the past if we could harness the same principles demonstrated by the sphere. But the bigger question looms over everything else. If the sphere is genuine alien technology, what does that mean for humanity's place in the universe? We would no longer be alone, and more importantly, we would no longer be the most advanced intelligence in our corner of the galaxy. The sphere's sophisticated sensing apparatus suggests it was designed for data collection. Every environmental measurement, every interaction with humans, every piece of information it gathered could be transmitted back to its creators through quantum communication networks. We might be under observation by intelligences with capabilities far beyond our own. The geopolitical ramifications would be enormous. Any nation that successfully reverse-engineered such technology would gain an insurmountable advantage over all others. This could explain why governments worldwide have become more open about UAP encounters in recent years. They may be preparing us for revelations that can no longer be hidden. The discovery that the sphere's atomic structure contains coordinates pointing to Zeta Reticuli, the same star system Bob Lazar identified in 1989, suggests something even more profound. If this is genuine, it means Lazar was telling the truth about working with alien technology at Area 51. The truth finally revealed. After months of analysis, testing, and debate, the scientific community reached a conclusion that will forever change how we understand our world and our place in the universe. Bob Lazar just proved everything about the Buga sphere because the evidence now supports what once seemed impossible. The mathematical encoding found within the sphere's atomic structure provided the final piece of the puzzle. The coordinates pointing to Zeta Reticuli weren't just random numbers. They were a deliberate message designed to validate specific claims made 35 years ago by a man most people thought was delusional. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who made the breakthrough discovery, stated in her final report that the probability of the isotopic patterns being natural or coincidental was less than 1 in several trillion. Someone or something had intentionally encoded those coordinates into the sphere's material structure using technology that could manipulate matter at the quantum level. The shocking detail that scientists revealed goes beyond just advanced technology. The sphere appears to be part of a larger disclosure process that has been unfolding gradually over decades. The increasing frequency of orb sightings, the Pentagon's acknowledgement of UAPs, and now physical evidence that validates historical testimony all point to a coordinated revelation. Bob Lazar's vindication represents more than just one man being proven right. It suggests that other whistleblowers and insiders who have come forward with similar claims may also be telling the truth. The implications for government secrecy and public disclosure are enormous. The sphere itself may be an autonomous probe using quantum communication to transmit data about Earth back to its origin point in real time. Every environmental measurement, every human interaction, every piece of information collected could be shared instantaneously with intelligences 37 light-years away. But perhaps the most significant revelation is what this means for humanity's future. If we can understand and replicate the technology demonstrated by the sphere, we stand on the threshold of a new era in human development. Gravity manipulation, limitless clean energy, interstellar communication, and space travel at unprecedented scales could all become reality within our lifetimes. The fiber optic network inside the sphere continues to operate, suggesting the device remains active and potentially still transmitting data. Researchers are still working to decode the light patterns, hoping to understand what information is being collected and where it's being sent. The truth finally revealed isn't just about one mysterious sphere or one man's controversial claims. It's about a reality where humanity is not alone, where advanced intelligences have been monitoring our development, and where technology exists that can fundamentally transform our species' capabilities and understanding of the universe. What do you think about this incredible discovery? Could this finally be the evidence that changes how we see our place in the universe? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.